Dune Awakening is Funcom's genre-blending attempt to fuse survival gameplay with MMO systems, all set in the scorching sandbox of Frank Herbert's iconic universe. You're dropped into a reimagined timeline, one where Paul Atreides never existed, and the fate of the desert planet lies in your not-so-capable hands. The result is a game where you're just as likely to die of thirst as you are to get stabbed in the back. But don't worry, dying is just part of the onboarding experience. So join us here at Game8 for our review on Dune Awakening. Let's get into it. Let's just get this out of the way. If you're asking whether you need any prior Dune knowledge before jumping in, yeah, kinda. The game tries to ease you in with a hefty lore dump right at the start, but Dune's universe is so dense and lore-packed that it barely scratches the surface. Expect to be confused by terms, factions, and weird sci-fi politics unless you've at least skimmed the source material or seen the movies. The game's premise is based around what if Paul Atreides never became Muad'Dib. But don't get too excited. You're not stepping into the boots of a chosen one. You're a nobody, crash landing into Arrakis with the survival skills of a hungover intern and the charisma of a rock. But from there, you slowly climb your way up, whether through trade, politics, sabotage, or just shooting enough people in the face. The game plays its alternate history card well. Without Paul, the power vacuum on Arrakis has grown enormous. You interact with familiar houses like Atreides and Harkonnen, but their roles are less defined. They're not asking you to fulfill a prophecy, they're asking you to prove you're useful, or at least expendable. You're recruited, interrogated, trained, and tested by various factions, each with their own brand of post-apocalyptic bureaucracy. It's a bit like being the new hire at a really hostile startup. Everyone's got an agenda, and HR is a flamethrower. The story progression isn't just a long cutscene sandwich. It's integrated into gameplay, unlocking new abilities, alliances, and crafting paths. Faction loyalty matters. Decisions you make can affect your status. And switching allegiances isn't just allowed, it's encouraged. Still, the pacing can drag early on. The game spends a bit too much time slowly feeding you lore like a shy librarian reading from the Dune encyclopedia. It's rich and immersive, yes, but also slow enough that you may wonder when the plot will really get going. New players might feel a bit overwhelmed without a primer or a glossary, but if you stick with it, the narrative becomes deeply rewarding, offering one of the more compelling and customizable MMO stories in recent memory. At its core, Dune Awakening is a game about surviving in a place that wants you dead and buried under 6 feet of sand. It blends familiar survival game systems with MMO progression and political sandboxing, and while that sounds like a recipe for chaos, it's surprisingly cohesive. Most of the time. Your introduction to Arrakis is an extended tutorial in how to not die. You'll gather resources, monitor hydration and stamina, and learn that sandworms have a sixth sense for people carrying too much metal. Survival elements are well integrated. Hydration matters in real gameplay terms, forcing you to think before sprinting or engaging enemies in open sun. Encounters with the environment feels tense but fair. Exposure to open desert during a sandstorm is a death sentence without shelter. Need to cross a danger zone? Better be careful or just risk it, get caught mid-run, and watch your lifeless body get consumed by a worm the size of a commercial airliner. Combat splits neatly between ranged and melee, and the quality gap between them is noticeable. Ranged gunplay is solid, responsive aiming, satisfying feedback, and plenty of mods and abilities to tweak your playstyle. Whether you're sniping from a cliff or running it down with pistols like a Fremen John Wick, the gunplay gets the job done. Melee, however, feels like it wandered in from a different game entirely. Inputs are sluggish, weapon collisions feel soft, and enemy hitboxes are inconsistent. Parries and dodges exist, but they feel less like precise tools and more like vague suggestions you throw at the game in hope. Given how many shielded enemies require melee to take down, this can lead to frustrating engagements where the most dangerous enemy is your own animation lock. One of the standout features is the freedom to mix and match your abilities. You're not just stuck with one class for the whole game. You begin with access to a basic skill tree from one of the grand schools, like Swordmaster, Mentat, and Bene Gesserit. But as you journey deeper into Arrakis, you can unlock and experiment with other disciplines too. This opens up a lot of room to tailor your combat style to whatever suits you best. The freedom is great, until the mid-game grind begins. Unlocking new abilities, factions, and gear happens through a mix of questing, crafting, and leveling reputations within game groups. It's meaningful, but the pace can feel like you're being drip-fed spice one grain at a time. The early game flows well, but the mid-game suffers from bloat. Materials needed for better gear spike in rarity. Questlines become fetch-heavy, and leveling slows just as you're starting to feel powerful. That said, the breadth of what you can do is impressive. Want to focus entirely on crafting and trade? You can. Want to become a mobile assassin who hides in sandstorms and ambushes PvP players? That's also viable. Crafting is deep without being overly convoluted. You'll gather resources like ores, spice, biological samples, rare alloys, refine them into components, and use those to build gear, tools, and vehicles. The system is tied to skill trees. Investing in certain disciplines yields better output, or lets you specialize in high-tech or Fremen-style gear. This adds identity to your builds, letting you feel like you're not just another dude in armor. Base building, surprisingly, is one of the most satisfying parts. Structures snap to terrain intelligently, interiors are customizable, and functional elements like workbenches, power sources, and storages are well integrated. You can go full minimalist outpost or build an entire compound. Just beware, certain zones allow PvP raiding, so don't get too attached to your spice rack. For the PvE players out there, don't worry, this game is still very playable for you all. There is a lot of content you can do, like progressing the story, completing bounties, and base building. The endgame could turn out to be a whole different experience due to the amount of resources you have to grind alone, but that's something to deal with after 50 or so hours of gameplay. For now though, PvE fans can take comfort in the fact that multiplayer isn't an immediate requirement. You can even opt to play solo if you prefer. Doesn't mean you're safe from the sandworm though. The map is divided into PvE and PvP. PvE content includes faction missions, exploration, and environmental hazards. PvP areas, on the other hand, are the Wild West. High-tier resources spawn here, and player skirmishes can break out at any time. It's high risk, high reward, but Funcom did ensure players that progression is not gatekept by PvP. So again, PvP not required. But if you're thinking of joining the action, bring a gun, because knife fights can get pretty jank. Unfortunately, combat isn't the only one that's clunky, as the whole game can be quite a challenge to play. Considering the game structure as a survival MMO hybrid, though it doesn't fully commit to being an MMO, the networking still feels like it needs refinement. Within just 30 minutes of play, before even completing our character's backstory with the Reverend Mother, we experienced two disconnections. One happened during character creation, which was especially annoying since it forced us to start over, and the other occurred mid-dialogue, before we even left the starting room or set foot on Arrakis. Despite having a low ping count, the game kept kicking us out, which is concerning during the advanced access phase when server load should be lighter. Hopefully these issues are resolved by the time the full release arrives. Arrakis has never looked better, or more dangerous. The game's visual design does a stellar job capturing the stark, sublime beauty of the desert. Windswept dunes, jagged canyons, golden hour lighting that makes you forget you're about to die of dehydration, it's all here. Sandstorms whip across the horizon, giant worms erupt from the ground in thunderous glory, and your first ornithopter flight is both breathtaking and mildly terrifying. The game does evidently stutter quite a bit, whether it's running through the vast expanse of the sand or in more acid-heavy cutscenes. The character models are serviceable, functional, not flashy, and animations can feel stiff, especially in close quarters combat. But the overall world design more than compensates. The UI is clean, the map is smartly layered, and menus are mostly intuitive. Audio, however, is where the game truly shines. The score shifts beautifully from ambient desert drone to pulse-pounding combat crescendos. It's no Hans Zimmer, but what's here is great. Environmental audio adds immersion. Footsteps crunching through sand, the whir of a still suit recharging, the distant thrum of a sandworm hunting its next snack. It's pure Dune ambience, and it works. Voice acting deserves special praise. Every line is voiced and no one sounds like they're phoning it in. The inclusion of constructed languages with proper intonation and accenting shows just how seriously Funcom took the Dune's lore. Dune Awakening isn't just another survival MMO. It's a deep, lore-rich experiment with ambition and grit. It stumbles, but it also succeeds in crafting an experience that feels true to the world of Dune, while giving players real agency. If you're here for a hardcore survival challenge, you'll get a solid dose of it, just not too punishing. That said, the game in its current form is still plagued by a number of issues, ranging from annoying bugs and glitches to performance hiccups, awkward combat, and server instability. For that, we're giving Dune Awakening a 74 out of 100 for a solid effort in creating a game that just needs a little more of that Arrakis spice. But what about you? Are you going to play Dune Awakening? Any games like this that you want to recommend to us? Tell us in the comments below. Be sure to like and subscribe for more video game related content. This has been Game8 and thanks for watching.